5 years ago, the Eagles won one of the most improbable Super Bowl victories of all time with a backup quarterback, brand new coach, Carson Wentz getting hurt. It was just a crazy game. Since then, it's been a long, long time for Eagles fans, and there were certain points where it felt like they were never going to get back to the Super Bowl. But one of the things that was heavily preached, especially by the front office, is that they were never going to rebuild, they were just going to retool. And in the 2 years that they've taken since getting a new coach and a new quarterback, they're back in the Super Bowl. Before we can celebrate, though, they have a very, very challenging game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Luckily, we're here to break down the entire game and also a little bit of Sixers trades and maybe some Eagles trivia as well on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aiden Tazinski, and I'm joined by a slightly new panel today, making her Sports Talk Philadelphia appearance, Libby Gilliam. Libby, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Of course. And then we have Mike Holden. As always, Mike, how are you doing?
Yep, Super Bowl week. Let's get to it.
Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks since the NFC Championship to now, and we just need this game to happen, and it finally is. This episode, we're going to break down pretty much every position, starting at quarterback between the two teams. These are the two of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. You got Jalen Hurts with over 4,400 total yards, 35 total touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. Going against Patrick Mahomes, who again had a stellar season, over 5,000 passing yards, 45 total touchdowns, 12 picks, is the front runner for MVP. Both these guys are 1 and 2. Libby, I'm going to start with you. How awesome is it that we're seeing two of the best quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl?
Oh my gosh, you said it. They're so talented. This is an incredible matchup. You've got Mahomes, who has Super Bowl experience. He knows how to win one and he knows how to lose one. That's going to be the interesting thing here. How is Jalen Hurts going to react to a Super Bowl? It's a lot of pressure on an athlete, and he's shown a lot of talent. He has 760 rushing yards in the postseason. He's killing it. He's such a talented mobile quarterback, and so is Mahomes. So it's really going to be who can show up and perform against the two best mobile quarterbacks in the league.
You mentioned the fact that we've never seen Hurts in a Super Bowl, but Mike, we have seen Hurts play in a college football playoff game multiple times. We saw him get benched in the national championship. That's something that he's preached about a lot, about how he came back from that. So Mike, do you think that sort of experience will still help Hurts even though he's never played in a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's proven that, no pressure is too much pressure for him. He's faced adversity, his whole football career, and it seems like his whole life. And, what he's done from last year to this year, just the improvement he's made is just incredible. And I'm so happy that he's gotten us to this point. And, it's going to be tough, like Libby was saying. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. And, he's been to 5 straight AFC championship games, 64-16 record, 10-3 in the postseason, and he just makes the team better. And he is, he's your typical passing quarterback, but he's also can just do so much escaping the pocket. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I love Hurts, but, I think the advantage does go to Mahomes here, but obviously with the experience. But, I love Hurts, but you just can't get into a shootout with Mahomes because Mahomes is just going to use his passing ability to their advantage.
You did mention that there's an advantage at this position going to Mahomes, but do both of you think that there is this sort of perception that Hurts is not that quarterback, even though he's been proving it over and over that he is still a very big star in the NFL at this point in his career?
Yeah, I mean, he's in the MVP race, absolutely. And like I said, it's the battle of the mobile quarterbacks. There's so much talent there, but like Mike said, I think advantage does go to Mahomes just a bit because of the Super Bowl experience. But as an Eagles fan myself, it's going to be really thrilling to see how Hurts reacts in that kind of environment. This whole Eagles team, they ride off of momentum and excitement. That's the whole city of Philly. It's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, Mike, and going back to a couple of those points, Hurts is going to have to run the football in this game, but if he does have to pass, do you trust him to sort of advance the offense with his arm?
Yes, I think that, you can't go into the game just like having him passing at all. You have to start, get the run offense going, get them moving a little bit, get the offensive line moving. And, it's a worst case scenario in getting into a shootout with Mahomes. That's the last thing you want to do, but the Chiefs offense is too good to not score points. So they're going to score points, and it's probably going to have to come down to Hurts going to throw the ball. And listen, we've seen it this year. He's made that improvement, and, I'm confident in him. See what he does.
And like something you mentioned is the Eagles are going to have to run the football. And that's something they've done very well this year, especially with their lead running back, Miles Sanders, had over 1,000 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns this season on the ground, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, which was great for him, his first Pro Bowl. The Chiefs struggled at running back at certain points this year, but it seems like they finally got their lead back in Isaiah Pacheco. He's 830 rushing yards in the season, has 4.88 yards per carry and 5 rushing touchdowns. Again, was not really the lead running back for the Chiefs until late in the season. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. How big is the advantage the Eagles have in the running game over the Chiefs?
Yeah, they have a huge advantage. I think, with that advantage comes how good the offensive line is for the Eagles. And the Chiefs also have a great offensive line too, but what the Eagles have, they have the best offensive line in football. And what Sanders, Gainwell, and Scott have both done has been awesome. And I'm hoping Gainwell can continue what he's done in the postseason. He's played great. And Sanders has been a touchdown machine. And hopefully they can, incorporate Scott in there a little bit too. But yeah, the Chiefs running backs, they're not as good as the Eagles, but Pacheco has been better. And I think that's what they thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be, but he hasn't been. And then Jerick McKinnon has been a touchdown machine too. So they're not as good as the Eagles, but they still got some depth there.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The Chiefs really were trying to figure out who their lead back would be. They settled on Pacheco, who just also has an amazing storyline, was a 6th-round draft pick this year, pretty much an unknown from Rutgers, got his opportunity, has played so well. Libby, there's so many great storylines in this Super Bowl. It's really just exciting to see those 2 top teams and then all these other stuff that these guys have.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun, especially leading up to the Super Bowl, because they're really looking at those small storylines and the big ones too to see, what this matchup is really going to be like. But going back to Miles Sanders, I had him on my fantasy team this year. I think he was a little bit underrated going into the season, and he blew up. I mean, there was so much noise around Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, as there should be, but Miles Sanders really came in and has been so reliable for this team, and it's really a great matchup, and both teams have some run game that they can rely on, and that's essentially what got them to the Super Bowl. And we're talking about quarterbacks too. How much are they going to put it on the ground? And it's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, a big question mark going this season is how much the Eagles are going to run the football, especially because that's something that Nick Sirianni struggled with in his first year coaching. Mike, I feel like there's critics have answered pretty well this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back last year, just everybody, kind of how Peterson in his early days with everybody was getting on him to run the ball. And, I think he's found there was only a couple instances where, that did happen where he's only gave Sanders, I forget what game it was, when he gave Sanders 2 carries in the first half. There hasn't been much. He's made that improvement, and I just hope that he just doesn't get away what he's done all year in the Super Bowl. Just do what got you here. Don't turn away from it. Same thing with Gannon. They're both just going to have to do what got them there and, just see what happens and get the win.
Yeah, coaching will be a very interesting storyline this role, considering that the Chiefs head coach, Andy Reid, was a coach for the Eagles for over a decade. Again, so many great storylines. Libby mentioned one of them is that the signing of A.J. Brown at the beginning of the year for the Eagles was huge. That pairing with Devontae Smith totally opened up the Eagles' offense, and their numbers were very explosive. Devontae Smith had 95 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 7 TDs. A.J. Brown, 88 receptions, over 1,000, nearly 1,500 receiving yards and 12 TDs. The Chiefs struggled at wide receiver, same that they did with running back, but having him Mahomes and this pairing with Travis Kelce totally opened up the offense. Travis Kelce, 110 receptions, over 1,300 receiving yards, and also 12 touchdowns. Both of these offenses are very explosive. Who do you guys think has the main advantage when it comes to weapons?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously the Eagles, but I think that the Chiefs probably have the best weapon in Travis Kelce. But I think when you look at the Eagles, it's much deeper. They have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You can even throw Quez Watkins in there. They got so much depth there that I think it just beats the Chiefs. But the Chiefs in Travis Kelce is one of the best players in the league, so it's going to be tough stopping him. But I think the advantage does go to the Eagles in the receiving department.
Yeah, if you're looking at wide receivers, the leader for receiving in the Chiefs is their tight end. So, Eagles certainly have the advantage in that wide receiver position. But Kelce, Valdez-Scantling, Smith-Schuster have been pretty reliable for the Chiefs. So, again, another good matchup. But, I mean, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, you can't say that they're not better.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's sort of the whole – it's so interesting me because both of these teams are so evenly paired record-wise and scoring-wise, but they do it in totally different ways. Yeah. And the Chiefs really just rely on Mahomes. That's their biggest – that's where the offense stay around. The Eagles have won in many different ways. But one thing that I've noticed, especially since the Chiefs traded for Tre'Davious Coney, is that they've really used the edge especially in goal line situations, to score. Mike, what do the Eagles have to do to really focus on some of these speed guys in Tony and Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, a little bit, kind of what the game last year, this is with, they had Tyreek Hill, I think it was week 4 last year. Tyreek Hill, I think, had like 180 receiving yards. And, what they did, they tried to just not let them get beat deep and just kind of keep it in front of them, and that's what they're going to have to do. But the Chiefs this year, they don't have those weapons. Like you said, they got Scantling, they got Kadarius Toney, who could be a weapon, and Juju, but it's not Tyreek Hill, and they're just going to have to keep it in front of them. Don't let the big plays, but Gannon's going to have to mix it up and not let them get comfortable and let Mahomes just dot you up back there.
Not signing Tyreek Hill was a big storyline going this season. It sort of disappeared as Mahomes still played well. But coming into this game, it is an interesting question. If the Chiefs had kept Tyreek Hill, would they be favored in the Super Bowl?
I mean, I think it will just be the same, because I think Patrick Mahomes has proved that, losing Hill, nothing really changed. They're still in the Super Bowl. They still got one of the best offenses in the league. And, I think you do have to give credit to not Mahomes, but Andy Reid of how good of a coach he is, being an Eagles coach, maybe some bias. I know some people are not too happy with him. They could never bring home the Super Bowl, but you can't deny he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, if not the best. And he gets the most out of his players, and that's what he does with this Chiefs team. Even if their receiving core is not as talented as the Eagles, he gets the most out of his players.
Yeah, both these offenses very talked about. The defenses have been as well, especially more in favor of the Eagles. Although the Chiefs' defense is nothing to scoff at either. When you look at these comparisons, they're pretty close in certain ways. The Eagles had 70 sacks this year, which led the NFL by a wide margin, 17 interceptions, 15 forced fumbles. The Chiefs had a very sneaky good defense this year, 55 sacks, 11 interceptions, and 12 forced fumbles. So both these teams are able to get turnovers at very key points. They're both able to get to the quarterback, which obviously the Eagles defense is going to need to play well in this game. But what are you worried about specifically in the Chiefs defense, Mike, that could be an issue for the Eagles offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main guy there is Chris Jones. He's their game wrecker. He can change the game, and that's going to be the biggest matchup. Him versus, the interior offensive line of the Eagles and Kelsey, Dickerson, and Sayamalu. It's going to come down to that, stopping Chris Jones. And just, you might have to double team him, throughout the game. And if you do, the other players in the one-on-one situations are going to have to step up. And the offensive line's been good all season, so I hope that they can contain Chris Jones.
Yeah, Libby, the Eagles defense is just built with so much star power. Is there one guy or a main group in particular that you're really going to look out for this game?
Yeah, you can't talk about Eagles D without talking about Hassan Reddick. 3.5 sacks just in the postseason and 16 overall, which outmatches Chris Jones by half a point. But still, Hassan Reddick has changed so many games. You look down and look up, and he's just sacking people, and he's incredible. He's so fun to watch. He has so much energy, and I think he gives energy to the whole entire defense. So just the way that he's changed games and brought kind of a spark to the defense is, if he keeps that up, I don't know what the Chiefs can do.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw that the 49ers really struggled against him. It's a big reason why Brock Purdy wasn't able to finish the game. Mike, another main player, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they brought in free agency. He led the team in interceptions. What does he have to do to step up to shut down the Chiefs passing game?
Yeah, I mean, his main objective is going to be on Travis Kelce probably most of the game in the nickel. And, he does give up that size. And, I mean, Kelsey's bigger than most of the guys that covers him. But it's going to have to come down to that. And Gardner-Johnson's good all season. And I'm glad he's on this team. And I think him versus Travis Kelce is going to be, that top. You're not going to be able to stop Kelce. You just got to contain him.
To wrap up talking about this game, we're going to go to a position that's not in a group of people that's not really talked about too much, but will be very important if this game is close in the special teams group, specifically the kicking. Both these kickers have been very good. Jake Elliott last year was a Pro Bowler, was around being a Pro Bowler this year as well. Very accurate. He was 20 of 23 in field goals. He's got a lawn of 56. It was a 87% accuracy rate. Harrison Butker struggled a bit at certain points, was also injured this year, but he still had a decent season, 18 of 24 for field goals, lawn of 62. So both these guys have range, have decent accuracy. If this is a close game, which guy are you trusting more?
Yeah, I mean, they both have the Super Bowl experience. They're both in there. They both played in big games, big kicks. I mean, it's hard to say. I think I'm just going to go biased and say Elliott just because I'm an Eagles fan, but they're both good. They're both been in big games. So, but I do trust Elliott in big time situations.
It's been a while since we've seen a Super Bowl go down to a game-winning field goal. But Libby, it feels like this game's almost setting up for one.
It is. I mean, all of the matchups that we've talked about are so close. It's impossible to pick. And again, it's just going to be such a fun game to watch. But I mean, weather here is not necessarily going to be a factor like it would be if it was in Philly. They're both, like you said, they both have Super Bowl experience, and it's going to be a toss-up, really.
Yeah, no, that's not. This whole game just feels like a toss-up, and I think we all are leaning in favor of the Eagles. But it feels way closer, especially even 2017, having Nick Foles as your backup. It felt like the Eagles just had all the momentum going in and were going to win that game. It doesn't really feel like that right now.
They certainly have momentum. I mean, this team, this city, I've never seen so much excitement. I'm from Kentucky, okay? We don't do this kind of stuff. So it's so cool to be here and see it and feel the momentum pushing them through. I mean, Sirianni, I've never seen a coach with that much energy and that much excitement for a team. You got to think that's in their favor just a little bit.
Yeah, Mike, how are you feeling about this game right now?
Yeah, I'm nervous. I think the mindset of a lot of Eagles fans kind of changed after 2017. We finally got a Super Bowl. You know, we're obviously starving for another one, but you know, I feel like the mindset's changed. So I think a lot of people are more kind of, you know, we're still nervous. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very nervous for the game, excited as well. We will see what happens. We're going to jump into the Sixers now, who have been disappointing over the last week. They started off this week with a win last Friday against the Spurs, a very young Spurs team. They were still a successful win. They won 137 to 125, and then lost 2 straight to the Knicks and Celtics in 2 very rough games. Just looked like the whole team was out of bounds. Mike, how are you feeling about the Sixers team with these recent struggles?
Yeah, it's getting a little concerning, you know, just because, you know, you're facing better teams, you know, the Knicks, but then yesterday with the Celtics, and they kind of just got outplayed, even with them losing Jaylen Brown in the beginning of the game. It just did not look good, and they didn't really make much moves today in the trade deadline, which is a little concerning too, because I guess they kind of feel like they're fine where they are. But I think they needed something else, and I don't know when the playoffs come. You know, I'm scared, but we'll see what happens.
Libby, there was so much momentum for this team going into last week, and now they struggled, and the bench problems are back. It just sort of feels like the same old Sixers team.
It is the same old Sixers team. I have been a Sixers fan my entire life, and it's hard to watch sometimes, but there's been a lot of improvement in the last few years. I really like Doc Rivers as a coach. He's been through a little bit of turmoil, but overall, this is a good team. It's a talented team. You've got Embiid, you've got Harden, and you've got Maxey. Those are your guys, and they always have a group of 3 or 4 guys that they can really count on, but it's who's next, you know, who's coming off the bench to score points. If one of them gets hurt, you're kind of done, and it's frustrating as a fan and watching, hoping something catastrophic doesn't happen, because if they can't pull out wins with their main guys, if something happens, you know, I just worry in the postseason it's going to be they get there, but they don't win.
Yeah, the big positive over the last week has been the play of P.J. Tucker. He's now scoring points. He was brought in as a defensive player, but he's now making open threes. It's very good to see. The Sixers did need to add some piece in the trade deadline, and they did. They added Jalen McDaniels, who's having a decent season. He's scoring 10 points a game. They had to trade Martise Thybulle, who everyone really likes defensively, but that was not the big storyline of the trade deadline. That would go to the rival Nets, who got rid of their 2 best players in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Arguably 2 of the best players in the NBA. So, Mike, I'm going to go with you. How does this trade deadline, with all the other teams making trades and now the Sixers making a small one, affect the East right now?
Yeah, the Nets have to be the first team in NBA history to lose 3 Hall of Famers in, a year? I mean, it must be tough to be a Nets fan, but yeah, that's tough. But I think the Suns, Durant, they're already a contender, but I think now they're the clear favorite in the West. I mean, it's just going to be health with Durant, but that's a huge move for the Suns. You got Booker, Paul, and Durant, and Ayton. I mean, it's going to be tough. And then Kyrie going to the Mavericks too. Him and Luka is just going to be a great duo. So the West is stacked, and it helps the Sixers out that the East is kind of lightening up a little bit.
Yeah, although I will say this trade deadline was disappointing for the Sixers. They felt like they needed another piece. And again, McDaniels is a decent role player, but was there a specific guy that you had in mind that you would have wanted at this deadline right now?
Yeah, there was one guy, Bogdanovich from the Pistons was one guy that I thought would be perfect for the Sixers, but it seemed like the Pistons just weren't going to trade him. But I think I'm not really, Tobias Harris I've been kind of leaning more away from him a little bit. I liked him in the beginning, but we need more scoring from him, And yesterday against the Celtics, 4 points just is not going to cut it in the playoffs. And you need him, and you need that scoring on the wing. So I think he's got to step it up.
Yeah, the one guy that was not traded from the Nets was Ben Simmons. It seems like that nobody really wants his contract. It's funny how it always goes back to him a little bit, even though he's left the Sixers. He still always somehow is mentioned on the show. But now we're going to go to the Eastern Conference standings. The Sixers, as much as they've struggled recently, they're still at the 3rd seed. They're still kind of comfortably there. However, the Cavs are playing much better. It'll be interesting to see how the Nets play without them. And the Heat are getting better. So, Libby, I'm going to go with you. Do you think the Sixers still finish in the top 3 in the East at the end of the season?
I think they do. I think the thing about the Sixers, they're always going to get up there. They always fight, and they'll get to the playoffs. They will be in the postseason, and it's going to be fun to watch, but how far do they go after that? I mean, they've got their core guys, and their core guys are really good. You can't deny talent. And Embiid and Harden, they're out there scoring double-doubles every night. You can't stop that, but again, it goes to the bench and just kind of to see how the rest of the season unfolds and what weapons and really who can step up.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to go to you now quickly. When it comes to the Sixers, it feels like the Cavs are catching up a little bit. The Heat are getting better. Which team do you think might pass the Sixers at this point in the season?
I think the Cavs, the Heat will be there, but I don't think they're going to pass them. But I think the Cavs are one team that's just been so good this year. The addition of Donovan Mitchell has been great. Garland, Jared Allen, that team's young. They're good. I think they can pass them. I still think I'm confident in the Sixers in a playoff series with them, but I think that's a team that could pass them in the regular season.
Especially because the Sixers have struggled against the Celtics, which is a team that they just feel destined to run into in the playoffs. It feels like that matchup is going to go very badly for them. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the season goes on against a team like that. We're now going to jump to the Fast Five, and we're doing a very special Fast Five. So for anyone that watched when the Phillies made the World Series, we did a very fun trivia game the week that they made it to the World Series. So in honor of the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl, we have some fun Eagles trivia questions. Are you guys all set, ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so we're going to go all the way back to 1948 for this one. Who did the Eagles beat to win their first NFL title?
The Steelers?
It was not the Steelers. I'll give one hint before I give the answer. It is a team that is still around. They just don't play in the city that they played in during this time.
I don't know.
It was the Chicago Cardinals.
Yeah, a little before my time, I
Yeah,
guess.
the Cardinals had actually beaten the Eagles the year before, so the Eagles got a little bit of revenge there. There was only one touchdown scored in this game in 1948. Do you guys know the player that scored?
Was it Chuck Bednarik?
It was not Chuck Bednarik. Unfortunately, Bednarik did not play until after this game.
I got nothing.
Nothing. It was actually Hall of Fame running back Steve Van Buren.
Oh.
It was a very snowy game. The Eagles barely got any offense going, but he was able to plunge in for a 1-yard touchdown. So that was the only touchdown in that game. We're now going to jump to the Eagles' first Super Bowl appearance. This one's a bit more recent. Who did the Eagles lose to in Super Bowl 15?
The Raiders.
It was the Raiders. Yeah, at that point they were the Oakland Raiders. And Mike, can you name the quarterback of that Eagles team?
Of the Eagles team?
Yeah.
It was Jaws, right?
It was Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did some research beforehand. In college, his nickname was the Polish Rifle, so shout out to another guy with Polish ethnicity. Although his name's a bit easier to pronounce than mine, so.
Yeah, just
a little. It's about even, I guess. We're now going to go to 2004. The Eagles did not make it to another Super Bowl for 24 years, as great as some of those 90s teams were, especially defensive-wise with Buddy Ryan. But they didn't make it to a Super Bowl, another one. It was Super Bowl 39. When they played the Patriots, does anyone know who the MVP was of that Super Bowl?
Was it Rodney Harrison?
No, it was not Rodney Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
It was an offensive player.
Was it Randy Moss?
It was not Randy Moss.
Was it Brady?
Unfortunately
Nah.
not. It was a wide receiver, so you got the position right.
Oh, was it Deion Branch?
It was Deion
Okay.
Branch.
All right, fourth
Yeah.
time's a charm.
Yeah, he tied the Super Bowl record for receptions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most of this information I found out while doing this. So I was not like I knew all of these answers. The Eagles quarterback of that Super Bowl was Donovan McNabb, who had a very interesting game. Is sort of remembered for almost being knocked out and getting a little bit sick on the sidelines. However, he still had decent stats. Mike, how many passing touchdowns, or Libby too maybe, how many passing touchdowns did Donovan McNabb have in this game?
2. 3.
It was 3. Yeah, he had 3
I knew they
touchdowns.
scored, yeah.
3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So again, very.
Yeah, hopefully Hurts doesn't need a throw-up bag
Yeah,
on Sunday.
hopefully. Again, thank you, McNabb, for getting us to the Super Bowl, but we still kind of remember him for that. We're going to now go to the Super Bowl. The Eagles did win. This one's sort of an easy one if you watch Super Bowl. Who's the MVP of Super Bowl 52?
Nick Foles.
It was Nick Foles. Yeah, Nick Foles, 3 touchdowns passing, 2 interceptions, and also received a touchdown on the Philly special. I gave one answer away already, but who are the other 2 players involved in the Philly special?
Trey Burton and Corey Clement.
Yeah, it was undrafted running back Corey Clement and 3rd-string tight end who also played quarterback in high school.
Yeah,
Definitely high school and maybe
I think a little bit in college, but then he converted to tight end.
Yeah, Trey Burton had to convert to tight end from being a quarterback. We now will go to the game-winning play, which was the strip stack fumble by Brandon Graham, but who picked up that fumble?
Derek Barnett.
It was Derek Barnett. Yeah, Derek Barnett was the first defensive lineman drafted from Tennessee by the Eagles since Reggie White. That's probably the only thing that anyone needs to know about him.
And coming out, I'm like, oh, comparing him to Reggie White, I was like so excited, and then obviously was not Reggie White.
Yeah, that was a bit of an ESPN overstretch there.
Yeah, helped us say we got a Super Bowl, but
we did get a Super Bowl out of it.
He picked up the game-winning play.
Yeah, so we're going to go to the opponent that the Eagles are playing, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have actually a decent history in Super Bowls. How many Super Bowl appearances have they been to before this one?
3 or 4.
Which one is it?
I'm going to say 3.
It was 4.
Okay.
Yeah, they made it.
They were in the first ever one.
They were in the first ever one. Yeah, they got smoked by the Green Bay Packers, and then would win Super Bowl 4 over the Vikings, and then obviously the most recent ones. So, when it comes to the Eagles, they don't have a very long history of Super Bowl, but there is some notable stuff in here, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean the Eagles are one of the oldest franchises. They got history. I know the Super Bowls aren't there, but now we'll try to start racking them up. So hopefully, the history of not winning is over.
I do want to say they do have 3 NFL championships. So if we're going to include the last Super Bowl, they do have 4 total championships, people. Okay? It's not just Super Bowls that count for
we can't be like Cowboys fans living in the past.
Yeah, exactly. No. Because people don't count those championships. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just joking.
I know, but I mean, you can count some of them.
No, I count them.
Especially for older teams that did win championships before Super Bowls. Actually, it's kind of funny. The AFL teams do have championships. No one really talks about them.
Yeah, yep.
All right, so that's all we have for this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Thank you for joining in. Make sure to watch the Super Bowl because, like we said on this episode, it'll be very interesting. Make sure to also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. We will be posting about the game as it is happening, or at least try our best to do that. But like I said, make sure to tune in next week. We'll see what happens with this game and what next week's episode is like. But that's all that I have for this one. Make sure to tune in next week. Thanks for watching. Go Birds.